Good evening. Call to order the October 14th, 2020 regular meeting of the Board of Education. Everyone please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A reading of our mission statement. We are committed to academic achievement and success for all students in a safe environment. In partnership with families and our community, our mission is to promote confidence, inspire a passion for learning, and to prepare our students to become responsible global citizens. Can I please have a motion for the approved revised agenda?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Questions and comments from interested citizens. We have one this evening from Lorraine Loaning. I'd like to just remind everybody, go ahead, Lorraine. I just want to remind everyone that after everyone speaks this evening, we have staff that will be sanitizing everything when you're done.
Sure.
Thank you.
Hello, Lorraine Loaning, district resident. Over the years, I've addressed this board many times. I hope you know that each time I speak, I want the district to be the best that it can be. For many years, it was very personal to me as I had 2 kids who went through the school district and graduated from here. This last year has been less personal but more pragmatic. One day, I'm a homeowner. One day, I'm going to sell my home, and homes in districts with desirable school districts are more highly valued than homes in weaker districts. So selfish me here. I want the district to excel, I really do. But this district is terrible, capital T, when it comes to touting achievement that is unrelated to sport. For years, I had to alert the district when there was high achievements that you overlooked. My youngest son was a high achiever, so oftentimes it involved Ethan, and I kind of put it in front of you guys. For years, I was told that the administration was going to look at ways to recognize these hardworking kids. It never really happened. It didn't come to fruition while my kids were here. I don't see it happening now. I know that it is hard to quantify achievement sometimes. So when someone else does the quantifying for you, it's a little hard to fathom how you miss a fastball right down the middle of the plate. In mid-September, the National Merit Scholarship people announced their semifinalists. This is a very prestigious award. This district has a student who is a semifinalist this year. My son was a semifinalist, and I had to alert the district back then. I'm kind of dismayed that I'm still having to bring this to your guys' attention. I don't get why the district can't be more on top of this. It's disheartening. I know you have a lot on your plate, and I appreciate that, but we are a school district, and we really need to recognize scholarly achievement. You know, and I don't know what else to say. This has been kind of a repeat event for me, and it's a little disheartening, as I said. All right? I don't have a dog in this race anymore, so it's less irksome, but still, this kid, you know, he really worked hard, and he should be noticed, and achievements should be recognized. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just say something?
Yes.
I think one of the things that's really disturbing is that when information like that, I don't get it. I don't have that information. I don't get a letter that says you have a semifinalist, because I will tell you personally that if I received that information myself, I would be touting it. I think there's a breakdown in how communication gets to the district, because I know you use the word, I consider ourselves sitting here the district. So I will look into that. But until you stood up there and said that, I had no idea. So there has to be a better way when one of our students makes that type of achievement, that the letter goes to the superintendent. Because again, I think that that's something that I would proudly acknowledge, but I need to get that information. So we'll see what we can do, but it's almost like every year I say the same thing. Um,
And Elsie, hopefully we can tie that into the, I mean, this is College Board we're speaking about, so the AP scholars that we had talked about at a previous board meeting, that should be added to the list as well for recognition.
100%. And I think that it's just really important for us to acknowledge that. Again, we're a well-rounded district. Yes, we have great achievements in sports, but we have equal great achievements in academics. And we're a school district, right? So it should be the academics that we speak of first. I just somehow feel that the flow of information doesn't get to us. So I appreciate you getting up. I'm disappointed that you have to say this every year, and then I go back and have to ask, how did this happen? But I also agree with Mrs. Talbert that we need to acknowledge the hard work that our students are undertaking, especially in times like this. So thank you.
Thank you. This evening, we have a presentation of our external audit report that will be given by Gary Theodore, who is a partner at Nugent and Hausler, PC. Thank you, Gary.
Hello, everybody. I'm a partner at the accounting firm of Nugent Hausler. We audit about 19 schools in the area, and I've been there for over 30 years. Everyone has a copy of the financial statement in front of them. I've gone over the financial statement in detail with the audit committee, and they asked me to come here and just hit some highlights of the financial statement for the board. And for those who want to follow along, I'm going to do something a little different than I normally do, and I'm going to start on page 67, and talk about OPEB, other post-employment benefits. And on page 67, there's showing what the balance of what you owe as a school for retired health insurance benefits to your employees. And the top of the page, we see the numbers started at the beginning of the year of $317 million, and then now at the end of the year, you owe $355 million, which is an actuarially derived number predicting what it's going to cost the school to pay for health insurance for retirees. And that number went up by $38 million during the year. So that's having an effect on your government-wide financial statements. So going back to what I normally do, keeping that in mind, on page 1 of the financial statements is the independent auditor's report, and the school was given an unmodified opinion, which is the best type of opinion that could be given on financial statements. So that's page 1. After the audit report is a management discussion and analysis, and I'm going to stop on one page there, which is page 9. So the school has actually in here 2 sets of financial statements. One are the government-wide financial statements, which have all the funds together, plus long-term assets and liabilities, and then we have the individual fund financial statements. So page 9 has to deal with the government-wide financial statements, and that's where the OPEB liability for health insurance for retired employees come into place. On page 9, we compare last year to the year of the audit, and on the revenues went up by $4 million. There's a column for change there. And we can see property taxes went up about $4 million, so that explains pretty much that difference. And down on the expenses in the change column, we see expenses went up $16 million, and that has to do with the change in the OPEB liability that I was pointing out in the notes. After the MD&A are the financial statements themselves, starting on page 17. Pages 17 and 18 are the government-wide financial statements. And the fund financial statements are not affected by the OPEB, only the government-wide are. So on page 17, we see the balance sheet on the government-wide basis, and the very bottom number is a negative $261,000, and that's a negative because our liabilities are more than our assets on this basis of accounting. And as you go down about 3/4 of the way on the page, we can see the liability for the other post-employment benefits of $355 million, and that's what's causing that negative. So it's kind of an eye-opening thing to see what the long-term effects are of giving health insurance, I'm sorry about that. Giving health insurance as a benefit and the cost that the school is going to bear over time for that benefit. When you go to page 18, now we see the income statement on the government-wide basis. And the third number up from the bottom, the change in net position, that's basically your profit or loss for the year on this basis. And it shows a minus 15,000, and that's all because, 15 million, and that's all because of the OPEB liability and the change in that during the year. So moving to the next page, which is page 19, now we're getting away from the government-wide financial statements, and we're looking at the fund financial statements. On page 19, the second line up from the bottom is the fund balance. And you can see at the end of the year, the general fund had a fund balance of $32 million. Special aid fund was zero, which is designed to be that way. The school lunch fund had a fund balance of $288,000. The capital projects had a negative fund balance, but that's just a timing difference because we're seeing the expenses before we see the income. So that's nothing to worry about. But, getting back to the general fund balance, you see a much different picture than the government-wide. The school is in good financial shape, but it's not reflected in the government-wide statements, but it is reflected here in the fund financial statements. If you go forward 2 pages to page 21, now we see the income and expenses by fund. And the third line up from the bottom is the change in fund balance. And you can see under the general fund that the income was more than the expenses by $7 million for the general fund during the year. The school lunch fund, the special aid fund broke even. The school lunch fund had a minus $419,000, which was a direct result of the COVID closing down the school lunch program, but still paying all the employees. The capital projects had a negative balance, but that's just a timing difference with the financing. After the financial statements are the notes. I'm not stopping there. But after that is the supplemental schedules. And I'll have you jump all the way to page 72. So pages 72 and 73 are now only focusing on the general fund and comparing the actual results for the general fund to what was budgeted. So on page 72, we see the revenue side of the general fund budget. And the very last column, the very bottom number, $770,000, that's the amount of revenue that was received above what was budgeted. So we like to see it in that direction, not below. And when you flip the page to page 73, now we see the expense side of the general fund budget. And on page 73, once again, the last column, the bottom number, $8.2 million, that's how much you underspent the budget during the year. And as you can imagine, it was an odd type of a year because of COVID, but the general fund weathered the storm very well. The last page I will stop at is page 83. And as you know, the school district gets money from the federal government, and if you get more than $750,000, you're required to have a single audit. The federal government requires additional audit procedures, so we do that here. So on page 83, the last column, the bottom number, you can see the school gets $5.6 million of money from the federal government. And that's kind of a quick a recap of the financial statement. We've been doing this audit for a number of years. The business office has always cooperated. Every question we ask gets answered. Every piece of paper we want to see. We drive them crazy sometimes, but they answer all our questions. They get us every document we need. So I'm happy to report that the audit went smoothly and that the school is in good financial condition. And that's it.
Thank you very much. I know we did meet with you for audit committee, so I know we asked some of our questions. Do any of the other board members or anybody have any questions or comments regarding the presentation? Nothing? Don, anything else?
No, again, I pointed out every year, I have no clue how the state is going to eventually pay down. There's roughly 750 school districts in New York State. And to put it in perspective, Monroe-Woodbury's liability is over $300 million. So just multiply that times 700 school districts to give you at least a concept of how broke the state really is. So good luck collecting that. I have no idea how you're going to get that money eventually. But there's other positive news.
Yeah. Well, it is a positive that I appreciate the staff and the financial department. That seems to work very well, so thank you.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Good night. Thank you.
Moving on, we're going to have an update on the reopening plan and COVID-19. Mrs. Rodriguez, are you going to go first?
Yes,
Okay. Mrs.
yes.
Rodriguez is going to present with Mr. Kravitz.
Can you go to the first slide? Perfect. We are 6 weeks into the reopening plan, and I felt it was really important for us to share with our community the things that have gone well, things that have not gone, things that we consider to be challenges, and maybe some changes. I just want to go back to when the plan was created. One of the things that we said we would do is always take things 2-week increment. This has been a fluid situation. Things happen, things change. I know that we finally this week were able to go to a full A/B schedule for the secondary. Unfortunately, we had a COVID positive case, and we'll talk a little bit about that, that forced us to close the building for the remainder of the week. But I do want to share a couple of things that I felt have, that not only I have, but I've received positive feedback. The fact that we are live streaming, we decided that we were able to do that 2 weeks early, and that was really done because the district had purchased bandwidth, and so we were a little bit ahead of the game, and so we were really happy that we were able to do this earlier. That was a push for our staff as well, because we had not anticipated that. When I did the presentation, I said it would be the 19th, but we were really able to move it up much quicker. I think that the teachers did an amazing job of going online, not only going online, but having students in front of them. That was a challenge for them, and they rose to that occasion. I had the opportunity to walk throughout the district and visit some buildings where I saw students who were remote, being in conversations with students that were physically in the building. Again, I thought that went really well. Our live synchronous instruction. So before that, we had that, A1, B1, and so that's when we first started to bring students back into the building. I thought that went well. I felt the students have really risen to the challenge, and I know that they're under a lot of pressure and concern regarding all the changes that we've made, but I will tell you that our students have been amazing. They come to school, they wear their masks, they're compliant, they move throughout the building, they're very cognizant of the fact that we're in a pandemic, so they have really been very collaborative. The other thing that has gone well is that we've had families that originally had decided they were going to go hybrid, and then they wanted to go to remote. And being able to have that flexibility has really benefited some of our families. The other thing that we did, and I will share that not a lot of school districts have done this, is that we have taken a lot of our after-school activities and we've turned them remotely. We've put them to a remote. So students, we know that students want things to be, and I put it in air quotes, as normal as possible, but by having these after-school activities and students engage in these activities, it's been a really positive move for them. It was a word I used in the beginning of the year. We pivoted. There's been times when we've had to pivot within 24 hours. I think our staff and our students and our families have done really well in pivoting. This is going to be the theme for the whole year. As we get information, we make changes and we make adjustments, and I really do think that for the most part, people have done a really good job of that. And I have there, again, students' behavior. They've really, really done a nice job. So the second slide is really talking about some challenges. And of course, one of the challenges that we've heard from students and families is that the workload has been difficult at times. I think that we've given, the students are online or they're in person, but also the amount of work that they're getting at home for homework has been really difficult. And what I think is happening in talking to some of the teachers is that our teachers are really committed to the curriculum. So they see that they have a curriculum that they have to teach. And when you have less time, you try to figure out how do you do that. And how they're doing that is by giving it to the students to do. So we're working on that piece with our staff and our students, but that's been a challenge. Another challenge is parents filling out the COVID screening. Every time a student comes to school without a COVID screening, it requires an adult in the building, usually a nurse, to take the student's temperature. That's really not enough. We are required to have this COVID screening. It's just not taking the temperature, but it's an attestation that reads that you haven't visited, a place that's on the zone list, that you haven't been in contact with someone who's COVID positive. So there's several questions that you need to answer, and so we've been struggling with that. And I know that the building principal sends a letter home to the parents saying, if that continues for students, we may have to put you on remote. And the truth is that we need to focus on educating students, and all of these things that we have to do really take away from our time just teaching. So that's been a challenge. I think from our teachers' perspective, it's been a challenge, the constant pivoting, the preparing things, the getting ready to teach in a very new way. And I think that the community has really been receptive to that. This has been new to them and challenging for them, but they've done a really, really good job. Contact tracing. So, and again, we'll talk about that. When we have a confirmed positive case, there are many people in the district who now have to engage in contact tracing, which means reaching out to every student or staff member, making them aware, letting them know that they have to go on a 14-day quarantine. And none of that is easy because it's concerning for families, it's concerning for our staff, it's concerning for our students. So those things have been a challenge, and we are working hard to get better at that. That's not something I really wish that we would get better at, but we are, as we're informed of the cases. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is information from the state to the local level. That has been probably one of my biggest challenges. The governor will go out and he will have an executive order, or he'll make a statement. When I reach out to the local, for example, the Orange County Health Department, they aren't informed about it, so there's a lag in time. Now the community knows what the governor said, and the community is looking towards the district, so what are we going to do? All of that creates a lot of stress on all of us, but it also creates stress for our families and our students and our teachers, because when they hear someone in a position like the governor to make a statement, they expect me to be able to respond very quickly. And the truth is, it can take a week before I have final information. So it is, that lag in time makes it very difficult to be able to be responsive. And so it puts an undue burden and stress on our families that I believe are already stressed out. I think we need to take a moment and we need to acknowledge that everybody is doing the best that they can. Our students, our staff, our parents, we're all handling this in the best way that we can. But it is challenging and it is stressful. And so I want to make a couple of recommendations, and so that's the next slide. We have been using Monday as Synchronous Monday, but it's a very, very short period. And one of the recommendations I want to make is that we should go to asynchronous, and I'll explain why. I think it's really important for our students to have an opportunity 2 hours during the day, and we would schedule that, to allow students to work on their own schoolwork, but on top of that, have an opportunity to meet and talk with their teachers about what concerns they may have. The way our schedule is built, it's very difficult for us to do that. So what I am recommending is that we allow for that Monday to become asynchronous. It also allows our teachers to really prepare robust instruction. One of the things that we said was, it's really important that our teachers provide a robust instruction for our students. Planning time is critical, and so I'm recommending that we take that day and we change it into asynchronous. It still means our teachers will be in the building. It'll allow us to do some more professional development. It will give students some time to breathe and to do some of this work, but also it will allow them to have this teacher-student time that you normally would have had in a regular school day after school. So, a year ago, if you needed to have extra help, you'd stay after school, you'd go during lunch. None of those things can happen now because of the situation that we're in. So that has been really challenging for us. The next thing I want to talk about, and I have Mr. Hassler here, I'm sorry, Mr. Kravitz.
I've been called worse.
That is true.
It's true. It's true.
I want to talk about how do we make a decision to close the building? And so we'll go back and forth, but that really is a case by case. First and foremost, if a parent or a teacher says that they're COVID positive, I cannot do anything until that has been confirmed by Orange County Health Department. And I know that's a struggle for people because people will say, well, I sent you an email and you knew that such and such was positive. The answer to that is, you can give me all the information and we will follow up on that, but we are unable to put that on our dashboard or send a letter out to our families until Orange County Health Department has confirmed it. Because the way that it works is the labs will send that list to Orange County. And so it would be dangerous for me to go on the whim of somebody who says, yes, this person is COVID positive, and I would go through this whole process. So there is a protocol in place that I must continue to follow. And I really need parents to understand why we do that. We have air quotes, I think.
They also, everyone needs to understand that this also happens very quickly at times. So we can't give, as a building principal and everybody else has been a principal, that when two kids get into a skirmish and you want to tell parents on both sides every single detail that possible, it's frustrating because you can't tell everybody every single thing. And that's the same as in this case. Yesterday, what we can tell you is, and we'll use that as an example, yesterday, Orange County Department of Health confirmed the positive case at the high school at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So when we're sitting down, it's 1 o'clock, we know the building's dismissing at 2 o'clock. We know we're going to be shutting down now, for however long. We want to get people that information so that they can prepare if they're going to be home and the like. We have to now begin our contact tracing. We had to talk to the staff members who were exposed. And even just having those conversations takes time because you're bringing people in and you're telling them, hey, just so you know, you were exposed to this. And everybody has different reactions depending on their level of comfort. Some people, were kind of like, all right, no worries, I'm good, I did what I have to do. Whereas others who might be less comfortable or may have certain situations going on at home had a very different reaction. It was much more emotional. And there is a human element in relaying that type of information, and that takes time. And everybody wants, or a lot of people want answers right away, and they want all the answers, and sometimes it doesn't work like that. So now we're up against the end of the day. We want to get people information. We want to tell teachers. We can't tell them everything. We don't have every single answer, and it's all swirling very, very quickly. So that's why the real-time piece is up there. And then buildings are different, and situations are different, and we've seen that now in a couple of buildings. And you can't even get into every single reason as to why they're different because there's a danger of potentially exposing who was diagnosed positive. And we can't do that. So we can't share the specific, child, obviously. In a case like the high school, just understand that if a student has a 9-period day, that's potentially 9 periods that they've been with other students, possibly a cafeteria as well. And you're talking you could very easily get upwards of 100 different kids, staff members that need to be contact traced. And that takes time because, as you know, every parent, may very well react differently as well. So all those phone calls happen, we had to do all of our contact tracing, and that's an example of
Right.
how that works.
And Matt,
And-
that number of 100 is at a 25%, attendance rate. So if there was 50%, then that would be at least double the amount of people that
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
come in contact, right? So that would,
Right, and remember, when we're getting the initial information, we're sitting there and trying to figure out in real time exactly how many people were there and at exactly the right time. What day is it? Was it the current day? Was it 2 days ago? Was it 5 days ago? And then it's counting back to say, all right, you had exposure on this day, and the people, if it's 2 days earlier, how many other people could have been possibly exposed?
and the transportation piece is included in that as well?
It is. And then Orange County Department of Health tells us who has to quarantine. So what we do is we reach out to them and we say, all right, these kids were in this class, who has to quarantine? And they're the ones to say, everybody has to quarantine for the 14 days.
And it's 14 days. I think there's been concern about, is it 10 days, is it 14 days? They are very hard on the 14-day
Elsie, 14 days from exposure?
from exposure. So, and so what happens is, they use the word infectious. So if someone is infectious, then that's the day that we start to count and we start to figure out who the people were. Now let's take an opposite, right? We have, last Friday, we had, I think it was 6 cases that we reported, and of those 6 cases, we did nothing, because the students, some of the students weren't in, and when they were in, they were not infectious. So those are the pieces that we need to make sure that people understand. We as a district have no desire to not share information, but the problem is, and I go back to this, one of the biggest problems we have is that even though you as a parent may share this information with us, we cannot share it on our COVID dashboard until Orange County says yes, because this is the way that it works. At 3 o'clock, I get a dashboard from Orange County Health Department. That lists all the students that may have been, that are positive. I then take that data, and then we have to do our own dashboard. And in order to be able to click and say that I have a positive, it requires me to say at the bottom, yes, I confirm this with Orange County. Because I think we've gotten a lot of feedback from people saying, well, you knew this happened over the weekend. And my response is, we may know a lot of things, but until something is confirmed, it is not a fact.
So can Orange County put numbers in your dashboard?
They cannot. Orange County cannot put numbers in their dashboard. They can only put numbers in their dashboard, which then, that's one of the things that we have to make sure is that the 2 dashboards are the same, right? So if they have a 1, I have a 1.
And there's a delay, there can be a delay in getting that information to us. And for example, one of the cases that was reported on Friday, the person who tested positive, it had been days before, and through circumstances out of their control, they were no longer physically present in our state. So now you're dealing with trying to get a hold of the Department of Health in an entirely different state, and you're saying, no, I swear this is who we are, I promise you, we're the Department of Health, or we're, the school district, can you release this information? And they're not inclined to do that very easily. But that delays Orange County in getting an actual confirmation, which is what goes in the dashboard, which is what would, causes us to shut down our.
And I also want people to understand, this is taking a lot of manpower. Like, we have, COVID-19 is taking a lot of manpower from the people who normally do something else. Kids get colds, they get injured, all the other things that is typical in a school, they have to do that plus this other piece. So when I say that people are a little overwhelmed, that's an understatement. And I just want to make sure that people understand that we are 100% committing to bringing students in school. But that takes a lot of time and a lot of making sure that kids are safe. And so when we make a decision, that decision must be discussed 4 or 5 times. Okay, what are we going to do? And I just want people to be clear that it's not just me sitting in a room making that decision. I don't make decisions arbitrarily. I make them with the consent and information from Orange County. And so we have to go with what's in the best interest of all the students. And I know that people were concerned yesterday that we shut down for the remainder of the week. But when you have the number of COVID, the possibility when you're doing contact tracing, We have got to do our due diligence. And so when I talk about pivoting, we're going to be doing this. And I just want families to understand. I mean, I received an email last night from a parent who said, look, I'm really concerned. I'm dealing with my own medical issues. We were able to, at 9 o'clock at night, Dr. Sassy was able to say to that parent, you didn't receive a phone call, we double-checked, your son is not on that list. So people are working till 9, 10 o'clock at night, making sure the information to parents is accurate. We have got to make sure that our COVID dashboard is, in fact, accurate. And accurate means that it's been recognized and approved by Orange County Health Department. So
I actually wanted to just say, this sounds like a serious struggle for this. This is a lot of work.
It is,
And what
yes.
came to my mind was, by the time a student or a person is already tested positive, they're already infected, right? So they may have used the bathroom. How are you actually monitoring who went into the bathroom
We
3 days
believe it or
ago?
not, there's a notebook in teachers' classrooms. I mean, this is the depth of what we are doing, that if you leave a
Crazy.
classroom to go to the bathroom, you need to sign in that you went to the bathroom at this time. It is really mind-boggling what everybody is doing. Look, I'm the superintendent, I sit back here. It's the people who are working in the buildings, the nurses, the teachers, everyone who is doing all the work, the custodians. People are really working hard to make sure that we keep kids safe. The thinking, another example was my students who go to C-Tech were
Yeah.
denied going to C-Tech.
That's right. That was the other
Because
thing. Mm-hmm.
they weren't sure, which is,
Now, shouldn't they have the dashboard too? Shouldn't they be linked to who, what, and where?
yes. But here's the piece. They are going back tomorrow. My C-Tech students are going to be going back to BOCES because none of them were part of the contact tracing. But this is all new. So BOCES doesn't know what they should do. We certainly had a very good conversation today, and we were clear on how we're going to move forward. But these are all the different things that we're navigating that we've never had to navigate before.
And so I know that you have to respect the privacy of those students.
100%.
So those students, I'm just going to give the example because you just said the students that are going to BOCES were not, or C-Tech were not infected. However, students that are not in the classroom now know that those students may have been the ones that are infected. So it just seems
Well,
so
the reality-
strange how,
And I can speak to that. So you have every student who was in the classroom with the COVID positive person, they're all on quarantine. So every kid.
they all, so it's not, you don't know
No,
it's
it's
that
the
one.
whole
No, so you don't
You
know
don't know
who
it's
it
that
is.
one.
So
Okay.
everybody, including teaching staff, which is where I'm going to go in just a second. So just really quickly, I know that the last bullet talks about the teaching learning schedules for short-term versus long-term closings. And so that is up there, basically, what you know now is that the high school, even though that they're not open for the next few days, or they're teaching remotely, they're on a regular bell schedule for the next 3 days. When if we need to move to a longer closing, or we would consider going back to the fully remote schedule that we had at the start of the year, for all the same reasons that we had at the start of the year. So the next,
Before
Before we go there, okay,
I have a question about the BOCES piece. Did BOCES notify our district that they were not accepting our Monroe-Woodbury students?
No.
No, they just didn't let them in.
Well, I mean, I hope there's some accountability there, because our
Yes.
district got a lot of, feedback today that we did not, and we didn't even know about it, right?
No.
there was a lot of clarity in the conversation.
There was clarity in that conversation today that I am really confident that moving forward, that will not happen again. Because that's not how we should operate, right? We should be clear that there's lots of ways of communicating with people. That should have been communicated to us.
So did they have a knee-jerk reaction and just say, do not have Monroe-Woodbury students come off the bus and enter? Is that how it
Basically.
went down?
Pretty much.
But they didn't tell anybody. I mean,
Right.
I mean, building principal didn't know, I didn't know,
Transportation did.
transportation didn't know, none of us knew.
I think that's one of the important factors that I know many of us have conversations throughout the day with each other as we have kids that sit in the school district. I don't personally have a child that goes to C-Tech, but I have friends that do. And I think it goes to Elsie's point that things are literally changing on the daily. And while I can understand that it is very frustrating as a parent to not get that information instantaneously, it's important to realize that there is a process to a lot of this. And the knee-jerk reaction sometimes as a parent is to be angry with, unfortunately, Mrs. Rodriguez or Mr. Casti in a situation such as this morning with CTEC, when in fact, given the opportunity to kind of navigate that situation and find out what exactly happened, we were just as much in the dark as those parents were. And that goes to a lot of what's happening sometimes with the COVID testing piece of it, that it is very easy to have that knee-jerk reaction, to be accusatory or think that either Mrs. Rodriguez, the building principals, the Board of Education is not being transparent in what is happening, but I can literally sit here and attest that that is the furthest thing from the truth. And I think most of us would say that as well. To Elsie's point, that we've sat in a lot of these meetings and seen some of the craziness that goes into it. I personally spoke to her yesterday about 6 times, to which I wanted to say, if you can please clarify, because one of the questions that we've gotten a lot from other parents in the district is, why do these students in the class that were 6 feet apart, perhaps by barriers, with masks, and socially distancing, why is it that not Mrs. Rodriguez, but the Orange County Department of Health is asking them to quarantine?
I think that the,
Safeguard.
My point to that is that the knee-jerk
Safeguard.
reaction is that we're bringing students in, and yet we're going to continually close, and the decisions are being made to do this, and it's almost out of our hands.
that was my next slide.
Yeah.
It is out of our hands, but I'm going to tell you,
We are powerless over it.
the amount of remember, we're in education. I want to remind everybody that we're in the business of teaching and learning. And we're now in the business of, making sure that we're keeping everybody safe and healthy. So we are constantly getting updates. Mr. Kravitz is constantly having to attend this webinar. The webinar that he was on yesterday clearly says on the webinar that if a child is identified as coming into contact with a student who's COVID positive, that child has to quarantine for 14 days. They can go and get a test,
And
but they still
negative.
can't come to school.
And that's New York State Department of.
That's the New
Correct.
York State Department of Health. That is their rules. However, if you look at this, and if you are positive, if you are COVID positive, the 14 days aren't necessarily what you have to mandate. You have to get a letter from your doctor saying that you've tested negative and you can come back to school. So that is the information that we are getting from the DOH, from Orange County Health Department. That is their guidelines. And the governor himself today said that if we don't follow these guidelines, they're going to take away some of our funding.
Well, that was my next question. If the Orange County Department of Health tells you something, you can't override them.
Absolutely not.
No.
I just want to, just to clarify
The
that,
only-
because people seem to think that you have the decision to say otherwise if they say you have to close, but you do not.
I don't. I will tell you this. As an educator, one of the best parts of being an educator is that you can control a lot of things. I will tell you that this past year has been, we control very little. All we can control is how do we get things done? What do we do when we're asked to do something else? Planning as much as we can. We have got to do what we are mandated to do. We don't have any choice. It doesn't matter if somebody else isn't doing it. I still have to do it. So these are all the things that I feel that the district and the community gets upset about. But again, we have got to do what we are required to do. Whether the rest of the country is not doing the right thing, we still have to do it.
Forget about the country. I think, again, our concern in our community, which a lot of people have reached out about, is as we sit here tonight, there is evidence that a local community that is not supposed to be attending school went. So the questions that we get are, why are we, Monroe-Woodbury, so inclined to follow every executive order? And the answer is because that's what we do. And I know that that's not the popular answer. I know that it frustrates me as a parent that when I'm driving my daughter to school and I know that certain community members should not be in school and yet still are, it frustrates me. It angers me, a lot of different things. And unfortunately, I understand where Mrs. Rodriguez comes into it, that we can't just throw caution to the wind and say, we don't care. We're going to incur the fines, or we're just going to go against the governor's executive order, and we're going to stay open like our neighbors are. And unfortunately, that's not how Monroe-Woodbury operates. So while it's frustrating, that frustration needs to be taken to Albany and not to Monroe-Woodbury.
Right, and I think what the community can really be confident about is that I will always advocate for our students with anyone that I come across, whether it's the governor's assistant, Orange County Health Department. I will always advocate for our kids and for what is best for our students. So decisions will be made and always in their best interest.
I'm sorry, and one last piece about the BOCES, because there was a lot of discussion today. Will those students and their families, will there be communication to them to say, we're sorry, this was not on, this is due to BOCES miscommunication, and you are scheduled for?
That went out today.
Okay.
So after my conversation, I sent out an email to Mr. Casti, who then forwarded it to the students who attend this program to say, you are going to be, tomorrow you will have, the ability to go to your program, whatever day you're scheduled,
Okay.
because it's a staggered schedule.
Right, okay.
But yes, they were informed today.
So just going back to what happens on a typical day. So I just want to use yesterday again as an example. We had 9 teachers who were told that they have to go into quarantine for the full 14 days. So it's a really easy thing for them to, they'll pivot to remote instruction, and it's really easy for those particular classes that are also all quarantined. However, you now have 4 classes every day where they're not going to have their physical teacher in front of them. Those teachers will now have to remote in, and now we have to get coverage for those classrooms. And just a state of affairs as far as substitutes throughout the state, it is very hard to get substitute teachers nowadays. And it is every single school district in every single area of the state. Typically, our substitutes, we have a lot of retired folks who tend to be our substitutes. We also have a lot of stay-at-home parents who tend to be our substitutes who can't do that now because they're at home with their own kids. We do have some college kids who said, oh, look, I'll come and I'll substitute. But that may not be the best thing, depending on the particular position. So every single teacher is struggling with that. And just those 9 teachers alone, that's 36 classes that we have to cover during the course of a day, in addition to anybody else who is normally out or supposed to be in there.
So what happens if you don't have a substitute?
So we internally cover it. We try to our best, but typically we try to cover it with teachers who may be willing to give up their prep time. We pay them to do that. That's part of the contract. But again, that's another cost. It costs more for us to have a teacher coverage than to have a full-day substitute.
Does that allow-
Bus driver, Elsie drives.
No.
Does that allow for the students that are home to live stream into a
The students-
substitute?
Right, and that's the point. The students will be still able to live stream in. They'll just be somebody who will be dealing with the physical management of students within the confines of the classroom.
Right,
I'll
but
see,
the substitute is going to set up a Google Meet for that classroom?
The substitute, they'll be able to do all of that.
But the teacher actually teaches.
The teacher's doing the Google Meet.
Teacher's actually
The-
teaching.
The kids will have their
Yeah, yeah.
Chromebooks there, and they should be able to do everything as if they were in class.
Oh.
Differently, obviously, not the same, but they'll be able to do that.
I think we have a question over here.
I think that it would be helpful when the communications go out, if it's guidance from Orange County Health Department, that it refers to that, because I think part of the confusion with the notice yesterday was it looked like it was a district decision
Okay.
and not really guidance from the health department. And I think that would quell a lot of questions, because we're already putting out there, we're going to follow the guidance, and I think we should just state that that's the guidance that came out.
Right.
It would help, I think, answer questions that people have.
So we could do that. The only issue is guidance is part of the conversation. So when we talk about guidance, it's going through the particular case. So what you're saying is point to the guidance. That guidance isn't in there. So there isn't a physical document that I can refer to. So when we talk about guidance, it's sitting down, it's having the conversation with them, and then going through the process with us and saying, yes, this is what you should do.
So
Yes.
that's
But
still
then
guidance.
pointing that,
Discussion.
during the conversations, this is what the Orange
Okay,
County Health
got it.
Department.
After a conversation.
As per our conversation.
Okay.
Yeah. That way, it's clearer that it's not just the district making a decision, out.
And it's a case-by-case basis,
Correct.
so.
Right. Do you want to, just to talk about that, here is some of the guidance. Can you skip, Matt, to, yeah, that one?
Yep.
Go back to the other one.
No, okay, there we go.
So here is some guidance. It's a little crazy, but you can see that when you have a COVID-positive student, if you look at closing, it'll tell you that you probably can close anywhere between 24 and 72 hours. This is something, this is a document that we also use, because there's so many different cases, but maybe we can, I don't know, do we have this on our website?
I don't think so.
We may.
We can.
So we can use that as well, but we'll word it so that there isn't a confusion and people really have clarity.
And
I
the
also
additional
have-
document to give to parents, I think, is the link to the pre-K to grade 12 COVID-19 toolkit that came out recently. And what that does is it breaks it down for parents, for staff members, and it has leading questions such as, can my child go to school today? And then it's, if this happened, then yes, if this happened, then no, and it breaks it all down. It's really clear, and we can get that to parents as well.
I think you were going to say something.
I have one more question.
Yep.
Someone I know that was impacted by this has a sibling, but the sibling's still allowed to go to school, but the other part, of the,
Right.
is home, and
Yes.
it's a
That's allowed.
challenge.
Wow.
That is allowed.
That's
So
interesting.
if there's a sibling if, say, a student is positive, the sibling of that student would have to quarantine.
Not
But
positive.
no,
If
you're
there's
talking about the-
somebody else who has to
if-
quarantine, and now there's a sibling
rule
of
is for
the other
direct
person who has to
Right,
quarantine.
it's
they
direct
They
contact.
can still go to school, correct?
They talk about specifically direct contact. So if Mrs. McCleary is positive and I sat next to her, then I'm a direct contact. But if I go home to my brothers and sisters, they are not direct contact. And again, we're going to give people the,
Yeah, I'm sorry, is this up there yet, Matt, or no? You're going to put this on?
No, we'll put that.
we'll put that up
on
there
the-
so that you can
That is
see.
weird.
It's just
is.
it's a little illogical, but I understand what you're saying, because a sibling would likely have very direct
Logical,
contact with
Michael?
another sibling at home.
There's no logic in
We,
this.
we had a case in Monroe where two families, they had a birthday party, and they had contact with everybody else, and every family member got sick, to your point. None of the ones they had direct contact with did. But everyone in the house got sick. One of their friends slept over, he got sick, and then that whole family got sick. But it makes no sense, but so far, the limited data shows that your family members are going to get sick.
Yes.
It's, yes, some of this stuff is hard to explain, but it's in the toolkit. I think referring to the toolkit and having on the website will be a great help. I think the next page is something so I just wanted to, because I think that sometimes people feel that we're being disingenuous. That's the last thing that we are. We are very upfront about this. So if you look at this form, I had us print one of them. You can see, this is just a mock-up, but you can see I have a COVID-positive student, and over here to the right, I have to make sure that it comes from Orange County. I know that parents keep saying, but if you know, I cannot. I can only report it when Orange County tells me that it's okay. So I just wanted to show this page so that people can see that. And then the last page is the school district report card, our COVID report card. If you take a look at that. Matt, did you want to speak to that one?
Sure. So basically, this is what anybody can see. If you go to the website on the bottom, every single day after our dashboard is completed, after the Orange County dashboard is completed, this is what goes up there. It'll tell you the daily new positives on a specific day, your 7-day total, your 14-day total, and then your total from the start of the school year. So it's just, if people are looking for more information, it's there.
One more thing I should say is that there is a Hudson Valley dashboard, which I was contacted to say you have 19 cases. I do not have 19 cases. The problem with Hudson Valley dashboard is that it takes everybody in the community, which means if you are a child that lives in this district and you are positive, you come up in that Hudson Valley as Monroe-Woodbury. That does not mean that you attend our school. So you could be a student who attends a private school or goes to school in New Jersey. That will come up under the Hudson Valley. I really want to encourage people to take a look at this dashboard. This is the one that reflects us and the one that we report. Two more things I want to say is that, or one more thing is that I am only allowed to report to families what I put in this COVID dashboard. So for example, I can speak about that it's a student. I can say the student was a hybrid student. I can say the student is a remote student. The only thing you should note is that a hybrid student doesn't necessarily mean the student was in school. So I think that's the other piece. People are saying, wait a minute, you reported a student who's hybrid, but you're saying you don't need to do anything. It could be that that hybrid student hasn't been in school for a week. So I do nothing. There is nothing for us to do other than share with parents. So again, I think there's a lot of things that we need to share with people and information, and we just felt that this would be a really good time for us to do that. Any other questions?
Did you say this link is on our website?
It will be.
No, we'll put that up.
It was also included, I think, in some of the letters that were sent home.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're saying no, you're saying yes.
Yeah, we could see this. I
It's
was
on
able-
the Inspire page.
Yeah,
Okay.
I could see this.
So Elsie, there's 3 dashboards, Hudson Valley, Orange County, and ours?
So
Inspire.
Hudson Valley reports everybody in the district, not necessarily our students, but Orange County and our dashboard should always be the same.
Okay.
Because the information that we print is on ours, right? So those two should be the same. Hudson Valley could have a lot more kids, but they don't go to our schools.
For those that are looking, though, if you go to our Inspire page for Monroe-Woodbury and you scroll all the way down to the bottom, under where it says Have Questions, Contact, there's a school COVID-19 report card link for New York State Department of Health. That is what takes you to this. So
Did
that is
everybody see that?
correct. So that's what it's on. It's on, that part is already on our district webpage under the Inspire section,
Tells you
Suzanne.
other schools.
The other documents that were referred to tonight will have loaded up
Yeah, we'll load them up.
into there.
All the way down.
And
If you're
and
curious
again,
about other schools, you can go look at those too.
Yeah,
Right.
they're on there also.
I've got it, thank you.
Yes, that one takes you to the New York State page, not the one that Elsie just referenced for Hudson Valley.
Right, the Hudson Valley was just something that was an article in the paper, which I then got called on as well to say that why do they have so many students? You're not reporting all the students. That is not all of our students, but I needed to say that because some of our staff and parents were very concerned that we were not reporting accurate numbers.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you for the presentation. Moving on to our next presentation is going to be by Dr. Hassler. He's giving a presentation about the culturally responsive education.
Prudence, can you wash my hands before? Great. So thank you once again to the Board of Ed for the opportunity to present this information to you. This presentation came out of a number of different questions that we received regarding some initiatives that the district has been focusing on recently, and the board has asked for just an update on some additional detail behind some of those initiatives and the rationale behind some of those initiatives. So just to give a little bit of background information, in January of 2018, the New York State Board of Regents convened a commission to develop a framework for culturally responsive, sustaining education. They partnered with the New York University Metropolitan Center for Research on Equity and the Transformation of Schools. They conducted a whole series of research initiatives and gathered information, and as a result of that work, they published a document in September of 2019, last September, called the Culturally Responsive Sustaining Education Framework. And the link to that on the stated website is up there. The document includes a number of different critical pieces of information. This piece is an excerpt from the document, and the reason why I pulled it is for the very fine print in there is a statement that appears a number of different times in the document itself, and I'll read it to the group. It says, "The CRS framework helps educators create student-centered learning environments that affirm racial, linguistic, and cultural identities, prepare students for rigor and independent learning, develop students' abilities to connect across lines of differences, elevate historically marginalized voices, and empower students as agents of social change." And in order to do that, they developed 4 overarching guiding principles, which are for the environment to be welcoming and affirming, that's both for families and students, for high expectations and rigorous instruction, for inclusive curriculum and assessment, and ongoing professional learning and support. So to illustrate that, this is another illustration that's in the document. It comes from page 12, where it basically outlines the 4 different principles and identifies different elements that are evident of work within each of these 4 different principles. So the first one is welcoming and affirming an environment, which would include a responsibility for the school district to the responsibility of the school district to learn about the cultures of their student body, of all students, for them to forge close relationships with their students as well as their families, to weave in social emotional learning programs within the school district, and to ensure that materials that are being used that represent and affirm student identities. Within inclusive curriculum and assessment, we are to include current events within our curriculum, we are to involve students as co-designers of curriculum, and we are to access a diverse array of different resources within the classroom. Underneath high expectations and rigorous instruction, that includes giving civic engagement opportunities for our students. It includes project-based learning activities on social justice, and it includes leadership opportunities for our students. And finally, under ongoing professional learning, the staff is to be trained in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we are to support curriculum for traditionally marginalized voices. So the next thing that I did was to start to kind of compile some of the things that the school district is doing to support each of these 4 principles. And many of these things, even though this document was published in September of 2019, many of these things involved initiatives that were ongoing even prior to the publication of this document. So that the first principle that I shared with you is to create a welcoming and affirming environment. Our school district has had a strategic plan initiative over the last 5 years or so. In addition, we've had a reopening task force. The reason why I raised these 2 initiatives is because the social emotional learning component of these 2 initiatives of the school district have been very prevalent in many of the things that we've been doing as a school district. The strategic plan committee has an emotional wellness task force, and the reopening task force also had a social emotional learning task force to incorporate social emotional learning within our school community K-12. The school district has partnered with an organization called Eye Opening Enterprises, and that organization is working with us on a number of different initiatives. One of them is professional development, which I'll speak a little bit later on. They're also working with each of the schools on establishing equity implementation teams to evaluate some of the initiatives within their schools and to ensure that there's equitable access across our student bodies. We've started, I don't even want to say started, we've had a number of different surveys that we've administered over the last 6 years within the school district in an effort to have all of our stakeholders involved in decision-making and to gather feedback. And that ranges from a number of different areas. Most recently, we've had surveys related to our reopening, gathering feedback from the community about their experiences, from the staff about their experiences, from the students about their experiences related to our reopening. Our district leadership committee has established goals in recent years involving social emotional learning as well as wellness and community awareness. Student and family engagement has also been a major initiative for us, where we've looked to have student and family representation. All of these district-wide task forces that I've mentioned have student representatives on them, as well as community members that are on them. In fact, I participated in our high school PTA meeting, I think a week ago, and our high school PTA really now is emphasizing that they're a PTSA, which is a Parent-Teacher-Student Association, which is fantastic. We've had the MW Cares Initiative, which is well represented on our district website. We're looking to increase our bilingual staff, and we've had an examination and an emphasis on our hiring practices and supporting staff and hiring staff who have the ability to communicate with a number of our bilingual students. We've expanded our newcomer programs within the school district and our bilingual programs. We've worked extensively on our community outreach, where we've had community liaisons within our schools, and we've partnered with our local police departments for some community coalition activities. We translate extensively our documents, our emails that go out. Our website is accessible in 10 different languages for people to be able to have access to information that's published on our district website. The next principle is inclusive curriculum and assessment. So this is some work that we've started recently, where we took a look this past year, the 1920 school year, on some summer curriculum initiatives, where in February of every school year, the staff compiles summer curriculum requests to do over the summer. This year we had 3 main themes or categories that summer curriculum work was approved. The first category was if there was a new course that was being created where there might have needed to be some additional curriculum writing that took place with that. We also did summer curriculum work with regard to the shift to remote learning, obviously. And finally, we had summer curriculum work that involved multicultural education, diversified education, and diversified curriculum. And a number of different departments across the school district, from the English Language Arts departments to the social studies departments to the library, did work in that particular area. We also looked at ways that we continue to evaluate our curriculum and the programs that we're choosing. 2 main areas, in addition to a variety of others, are critical in how we evaluate new programs that we may consider implementing within our school district. One of them is student accessibility, and is the material that is included in that program something that is accessible to a wide range and a diverse range of our students, as well as student connection, where is the material that's included in that program or that curriculum something that is engaging to a diverse population of our students. We're also looking to increase student choice. An example that I've, in some of the questions that I've been asked about this, an example of that is the 6th grade English Language Arts curriculum includes a portion of the New York State ELA module, Module 1, which involves students to read the Lightning Thief. And the theme that book is intended to cover is a hero's journey. And all students read The Lightning Thief. And one of the things that we talked about is how can we increase student choice so that way, while a hero's journey is the theme that is taught by using The Lightning Thief, can we give students choice where the characters within a book may be more, the students may be able to identify and connect more because they may have a similar identity or common characteristics. So rather than having a one-size-fits-all, giving students the opportunity to be able to still work towards a particular topic or theme, but allowing them the opportunity to be able to choose literature that might be a greater connection to them. And also professional development, which is a later slide that I'll speak about. The next principle is the high expectations and rigorous instruction. So included in this are some of the things that I listed earlier with civic engagement for our students, where our students have the ability to gather volunteer hours in community service for enhanced diploma opportunities, to ensure that there's accessibility and equitable access for all of our students with regards to accelerated courses. That's something very much that we are looking to improve upon. I know that that's one of the major focuses that the equity teams are going to be digging into at the building level. The inclusivity of student voice. This is one of the things that I mentioned earlier, where we have many student representatives on district committees. That includes the strategic plan committee, the reopening plan. There's also, we have a student representative on the Board of Education. Emily is, I believe, our 5th student representative on the Board of Education,
Yep.
which is something that the district is very proud of. We're looking at different pathways towards education, where rather than having a traditional pathway towards graduating, we have an art pathway towards education. Students have the ability to be able to get New York State mastery in math or sciences. We're looking at the possibility of creating an education pathway towards graduation. Another major theme is quality versus quantity. And this is one of the things I think that was a takeaway from the spring closure, is that our time with our kids is very precious, and we need to make sure that the instruction that we're providing to them is quality, meaningful instruction. And it's not something that is just quantity, and having high, a rigorous instruction does not necessarily mean an overabundance of work. It means providing quality instruction to our kids. The Student Engagement Task Force specifically, where I was talking about the inclusivity of student voice, this is something noteworthy, because when we were embarking on our reopening plan and our reopening committee over the summer, one of the groups that we met with was our Student Engagement Task Force from our strategic plan, and we were talking about different models with regards to opening school. And one of the major themes that the students shared was, at all levels, that they wanted to have the opportunity to be able to be in the building. And different school districts looked at different models at the elementary level versus the middle level versus the high school level. And that was something that was very critical for us, was if there was a model that we were going to roll out, it really was going to be something that was going to be K-12. And that came directly from having students sitting at the table and working with us to be able to make some of those decisions. The New York State Seal of Biliteracy is another item that we have implemented. This is our 4th year of offering the seal. We've had dozens of kids who have completed the seal. Basically, it recognizes high school graduates who have attained a high level of proficiency in listening, speaking, reading, and writing in one or more languages in addition to English. This past year, despite the closure, we were particularly proud because we had a number of students who got the seal of biliteracy in multiple languages. Up until then, the previous 3 years, we only had students who achieved the seal in one language, but we had a number of students who were able to complete that with in multiple languages. And finally, the last category is professional development. As I said, the Eye-Opening Enterprises, we've partnered with them to do some of the equity work at the building level. We've also partnered with them to conduct professional development for our staff. They did 2 days of professional development prior to the opening of school for our superintendent conference days, and the professional development was on trauma-informed education as well as culturally responsive connections in the classroom. And this is work that's going to continue for the remainder of this year and into the 21-22 school year. We also partnered with the Orange County Department of Human Rights, and they did some professional development during our administrative retreat over the summer. Our staff offer a number of different in-service courses to be able to support this work. And we also have professional development opportunities that exist outside of the school district beyond our offerings, where Orange Ulster BOCES, Rockland BOCES, the Rockland Teacher Center, different local organizations do different seminars and trainings over the course of the school year, and we support our staff in registering for those trainings. And it includes trainings in bias awareness. It includes trainings on diversified curriculum, diversified instruction, and that's work that's ongoing. And that's it. Questions?
Thank you. I first want to say thank you to Dr. Hassler and to the board, because we've now sat through this presentation twice.
Congratulations.
This was presented to us at our workshop retreat that we had a couple weeks back, but we felt the importance to bring it to the public forum, since this has been something that came up on the forefront And I just want to have you touch upon two things.
Sure.
Because again, I think sometimes it's the perception of the timing of some of the material that has been presented to the students.
Right.
So if you can just go back to the fact that I get that we have rolled this out and released this as of this past September, but this was something that technically came down from the state as a new curriculum, especially the social justice component of it.
Sure. This document was published in September of 2019, so at the beginning of
Last year.
school year. Correct. So this was work that was done, throughout it started at the beginning of the school year. And remember, summer curriculum requests are initially submitted by the staff in February. So some of the curriculum that you're speaking about was the result of summer curriculum work that was written over the summer, but this was work that was done beginning throughout the school year last year.
Okay.
Pre-COVID, pre-closure.
Basically, instead of being reactive, we've been proactive all along.
Right, and part of the reason why, for me, it was important when I was asked to do this presentation to sort of present a holistic perspective where many of these initiatives, from the strategic plan and social emotional learning and all of the things that I'm speaking about, the equity work, this was work even though the framework that came out in 2019 really kind of like gave the initial nudge across the entire state for school districts to embark on this. We had started this work even before then. Some of it is new. I mean, our partnership with Eye Opening Enterprises is something very new, where that came out of the SCL task force that was part of the reopening plan. So some of this is new and some of it's old, and it's very much ongoing. So,
So I have a question. On
Sure.
the Monroe-Woodbury initiatives, under surveys, is the climate survey under that?
Sure. I mean, I know the reason why I put 6 years was because our survey started way
Yes.
back then with the climate surveys. Yep.
So when was the last climate survey that we had?
What's interesting is the climate surveys kind of went through an evolution, where one of the things that we're now sort of conscientious because we've started this survey process is to not inundate people with surveys. So we moved from I think we did 2 years worth of climate surveys to have kind of like a benchmark and some work around improving the climate and then following up on how we were doing. And then that transitioned into the strategic plan surveys, which the strategic plan surveys were much broader, where the climate survey was focused specifically on basically life within the school district. That was part of the strategic plan surveys, but that included other things as well, including curriculum and a number of other things. So the rationale was, when we started doing the strategic plan surveys, was that the climate survey was essentially embedded in there. Even though it was two completely separate surveys, what we were looking to gather feedback on was still included within that strategic plan survey, if that makes any sense of what I'm saying.
No, it does. So when would the next climate survey?
We just did it. We just
did
did
you
it,
do
we just did it in February, right before COVID. We did a survey. We haven't discussed it because then school
Okay.
closed.
Right.
But we did our survey in February.
The survey in February was the follow-up version of the strategic
Correct.
plan survey that was
includes
administered. Right.
Because I don't recall seeing it come in.
Oh, yeah.
It did.
Yeah?
We did.
Yeah, it did.
Well, then I didn't fill it out?
You have time.
Really? So it was the climate survey?
Well, no.
No, it was
what
called
happened
something
was
else then.
We were very cognizant not to over-survey people, because after a while,
No, I
you
got
sort
that.
of
So what was
inundate
it
people with
called?
surveys.
What was it actually
Called
called?
the strategic plan survey.
Okay.
Some of the questions from climate survey were redundant.
on there.
And so instead of surveying our same stakeholders twice, the decision was like to do as a part 2 of strategic plan that embedded the same questions of climate survey.
Okay, so-
But we specifically say it's a strategic plan survey, not the climate.
Gotcha.
And
So-
again, the population that those surveys were administered was the same group of people. So the initial climate surveys went to students and families and staff. The same thing with the strategic plan survey. So again, rather than inundating people, when we reviewed the strategic plan survey that we administered a number of different times, the elements that were included in the climate survey were also included. The questions might not have been exactly the same
Got it.
because the surveys weren't the same company, but
But your results, we will know what those results
Yeah.
are? Because the one major issue was, my takeaway was the high school social emotional.
Right.
So here we are rolling out all these different initiatives, we're doing
Right.
things. Has that changed, right? I mean, it's a different cohort of students,
Right.
clearly, that took it then and took it now, but did anything change? Did we move the needle a little bit?
Right.
I think one of the things that was noted this year, and I think, Emily, you said it, was that we began the first two weeks of schools, we really focused on the social emotional piece, which we really have never done. So, and I know that you mentioned that, the teachers were making connections with their students. That was a big thing for us as far as what the survey said. And one of the things the survey said was that students felt like they weren't making these connections. So the.
Okay, yes, I do remember. Gotcha.
And I think,
it's
picking-
important, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I had a
think
light
it's
bulb
important to
moment.
note the piece that we discussed with community outreach and the student and the family engagement. I do know, and Mrs. Ricker's not here, was part of the SEL task force, but maybe Dawn can speak to Dr. Pickens, and that we've already done one webinar that we had back, and I think it was 80 or so parents that logged into that roughly, right? But I do think that there's a plan to do a future one that, again, you know, one of the positive things that I guess that's come out of COVID is you really have no excuse not to attend to these things. 'Cause you
Absolutely.
can attend them in your living room on your laptop. Instead of
Absolutely.
having to go to the high school and actually see the guest speaker in person, you can do it from your living room. So I do hope that more people will take advantage of the next webinar. I'm sure it'll be well advertised.
We're working on some dates.
Yeah.
See, probably the end of October, beginning of
Okay.
November.
It's just another component that we have to kind of bring everybody onto the same page.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, and I think, you know, to go back to a few board meetings where Emily was speaking about some of the work that she's looking to do this year, I mean, listening to what she was presenting, for me, was sort of an affirmation of the work that's happening, because when, you know, you hear some of the themes and what I was presenting about equity and accessibility and things like that, I think for one of our students to be able to come to a Board of Education meeting and speak about the work that she's looking to do, which I think is very much tied into what I'm sharing, I think is a great affirmation of the
Right.
work that's happening within the school district.
I agree.
So, thank
And
you.
Eric, I know
Thank
you didn't
you.
go into it too much, but it's not really applicable to the curriculum part, but the equity task force that's going to come out of the implementation team in the district, that's going to include parents and students, and there'll be voices representative of the entire district, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And just one reminder as well, that when we were doing the reopening task force, the interim commissioner said you had to do a social emotional piece as well.
I wasn't going to give them credit. I want to make it sound
No,
like that was
but-
our brilliant idea.
No, but this is not, and I'm not saying that we wouldn't want to do this, but I think that this is in response to what we're required to do. Not that we're doing it because we're required, but I also want people to understand that, like many things that come to us from SED, we have a responsibility and we have
Correct.
to do what we are asked to do. So it's really important for our community to understand that as well.
Absolutely. And in reality, what you're saying, for example, the reopening task force, we followed their exact model. I mean, we were required to have that, but basically, we designed our model right after the model that the state was implementing themselves with regards to having community forums and gathering information from and feedback from all of the constituents. So we followed their exact
Right,
model.
and there's been a lot of people in part of that conversation. So that hasn't been just, again, it's not cabinet who sits in a room and says, this is what we're going to do. We are very inclusive, and this summer was an example of that. We had a lot of people who were part of these committees who shared, and what came out of that was really from the community and the teachers and the staff.
And again, I think part of the reason why I highlighted the input specifically of the Student Engagement Task Force was, you know, sometimes people sit in these committees and they're like, is this a colossal waste of my time? Is this really going to make a difference? And I think that was a great example of 100%. We sat in a room with the kids, it was the cabinet and the group of students, and students at all age levels were like, we think that it should be a K-12 reopening plan. And after that, it was a K-12 reopening.
I think, Emily, were you on that call?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Emily was on that call as well, and it was a resounding, I would say most of the kids said, no, if you're going to open, you're going to open for all of us.
Right.
That includes us.
And Eric, just to point out again, I mean, to what Stacy said, this guidance that came down was September 2019.
Correct.
A lot of the initiatives that we've been doing as a district, including the MW Cares or the professional development or Choose Love curriculum, they have been in place before this.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Right.
correct.
And I think to the point of the fact that it is coming from SED, you know,
They
not
got
that
the
I
idea
want,
from
not
us,
that I
'cause we
want to,
did.
right, but not that I want to pat us on the back, but it does warrant
Right.
your guys' credit that you're not just checking a box and going through the motions of doing it.
Right.
It's kind of that, in my opinion, we are going above and beyond by including students, including parents, and to that effect, offering up webinars and things to the community, not just going through the motions of, okay, this is going to be the current curriculum that we are going to teach in the classroom.
Absolutely.
So I think that's an important part to
And
mention.
I mean, the questions that I've received related to a lot of these different initiatives are very welcome, because I also take that as feedback. When people reach out to me and they're saying, you know, I got a question about X, Y, and Z that either something that my child is participating in, or something that's going on in the classroom or whatever, just like with all of these other forums and surveys and everything else, that's a form of feedback. So, you know.
And the SED guidance is pretty specific as to what they want taught, right?
Very
As far as the
specific.
social justice and the cultural
Yes.
responsiveness. So if they look at that guidance, parents and community that are curious, they'll see the specific language
Absolutely.
that says you are required to talk about this, this, this.
Sure.
It doesn't dictate when you have to do it.
Correct.
It doesn't have to say in the first quarter, but at some point during that school year.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Moving on, authorization of attendance to the 2020 NYSBA Annual Convention. Can I have a motion to approve?
I motion.
Stacey will attend, which I believe is the third week of October. I forget, I think somewhere around there. We can publish that, I think. It's like the 22nd or the 23rd, I think I start attending it virtually. That'll be a virtual convention. that I'm
Second.
attending. Motion? Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Another motion, please, for the appointment of a voting delegate at the 2020 NYSBA Annual Convention. Motion to appoint Stacey McCleary as the voting delegate at the
Motion.
2020 NYSBA Convention. Motion, second. All those in
Motion.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is, we want to discuss the vacant board trustee position due to the resignation of Mr. DiLorenzo. So basically, what's been happening is we have consulted our attorneys to see what our official steps are. So basically, we have three potential options as to how we can fill the seat. So Ed Law confers the power and the duty to fill any board vacancy on the Board of Ed. So the choices that we have are, the board may hold a special election to fill the vacancy within 90 days of its occurrence. I will say that with that election, that is at the expense of the taxpayers. So that is one option that we do have. Second option is that the board may decide to appoint someone to the vacancy. The board may appoint an eligible citizen to serve until the next annual meeting and vote, which would be this coming May 2021, after the board member had resigned back in November of 2020. The appointee, following a presumed board solicitation and interview process, would serve a short period of time before having to face an election in the May 2021 election. So basically, that particular piece would be that if we filled the seat, the person that would be in that seat would then have to, if they chose to, run for re-election this May of 2021. The third option that we have is that the board can choose to leave it vacant, and then it would finish out the term as a vacant seat, which is what we currently have right now, and that spot would be up for election in the May 2021 budget vote and board hearing. So those are the three options. We just wanted to kind of present that out there, that that's something that we'll kind of be discussing to figure out exactly how we are going to fill that seat. I will mention that Mr. DiLorenzo's seat was up for re-election this coming May 2021. There's 3 spots every year, and his would have been one of them. So just wanted to put that out there so that everybody's aware of what the options are. Any discussion about that?
I would go for 3, option 3.
Option 3, okay.
Yeah.
So we'll.
Definitely not option 1.
Yeah, right. I think at this point, the discussion that, that should be is how fiscally responsible it would be to hold on a roughly $10,000 election.
And in the middle of
Yes,
the pandemic.
in the middle of a pandemic, and when, truth be told, it's only a couple of months before that seat will hopefully potentially be filled anyway come the May election. Okay.
Since we are discussing this, it's probably a segue for me to make an announcement that my last meeting will be November 18th.
Correct.
So I will be resigning from this position as well.
So,
Yes, so we will have, so the same scenario will apply. So we will have, unfortunately, another vacancy. And unfortunately, what happens in situations like this, which is important for the community to note, is that unfortunately, as lovely as it is to have Lorraine here, she is no longer living in the district.
I
or
do
will
have
no
a
longer be
residence
living
in the
correct.
district, but in my good conscience, I could not walk around here pretending that I live here, even though I do have a residence here. So I cannot outright feel that comfortable with that scenario. So I have, for the benefit of the taxpayers, the benefit of the community, and the benefit of this board, I have to be upfront and honest.
so Lorraine's position is up for,
So Lorraine's position is technically not vacant until next year, which is May of 2022. However, we have consulted with the attorneys again to see how that may impact anything, and it does still read exactly as this.
so those three options are the same?
Correct. The three options are the same. So we would then have the potential to fill that seat. However, the initial understanding was that if it was filled, that individual would remain in the position until next year, which was when Lorraine's seat technically would have been up, which would
That's
have
not-
been.
that's not-
And that is not the case.
No.
That's not the case.
It is not. So
That means
that
both
person
seats
would
are up.
still remain until this May of 2021, and that person would then have to rerun, should they choose to do so.
Just like Mr. Di Lorenzo.
Correct.
So it would be 4 seats, though, as opposed to the 3 that's the usual.
Correct.
Right.
It would be 4 seats that are on.
Would that person be running for a term of 2 years or 3 years? In other
3
words,
years, right?
Would they
One
just be,
and then 3.
It's for the remainder of
her term.
of her term.
and then they would run on their own?
Correct.
Correct.
They'd have to
So
run
they
for
would,
1 year, and then they'd have
So
to
who-
they
rerun
would
again.
rerun again the
Who would
following year.
determine who got that seat? The
Right.
lowest count? How do you figure
Yes.
that out? It's the lowest, really?
Second lowest.
The second lowest?
Yeah,
Okay.
so,
We could have 2 different options for each seat. We could choose option 1 for one and option 3
Correct.
for the other.
So we
Yes.
could fill one and not fill the other
correct.
until May?
Exactly. Yes.
And in May, we could,
Yes, exactly. So it's treated as 2 separate individual situations. And like I said, the only clarification that we had just received is that even though her term is technically not ending until next year, whatever we did with that seat would have to rerun this 2021, and then if they chose to, they would rerun again, as Ms. Fatucci just said, for next year, which was when Lorraine's seat was
Would
up to
actually
begin
be-
with.
So
so they'd
was-
be running to fill her vacant seat and then running again for the seat on their own?
Correct.
and is
exactly.
there an option to appoint?
Yes,
There is
yes,
an
that was
option.
But
number
only
1.
till May?
Yes,
That you can appoint someone, 2 people?
yeah. So, okay, so we wanted to make sure that we got that out there to the public so that we could further kind of discuss it. Moving on, annual professional review, APPR hardship waiver. Can I have a motion to approve the annual APPR hardship waiver?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of the revised board committees. I do apologize, as this was my error the last time. It was on the agenda, but I did not take an official motion. So please note that we've altered the committees. This is on our agenda. So motion, Don,
Second.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is 14.1, resolution for stipulation of a settlement. May I have a motion to approve the resolution?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
A second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Committee reports. Don, do you want to say anything about audit? I know we just had our presentation, but anything else?
No, I think we've covered it for audit. I think facilities, we've made real progress. I'll let Patrick fill in the details, but I think we're coming to an end of the punch list and there's working on a new.
Always let Patrick fill in the details.
What? He can fill in. has all the
Do
details.
you want to say something, John?
No, you're good.
No, I'll let you fill in the details of the visitation as well then, so.
Yeah, so we had a facilities meeting last week, I think it was, and we went through where we are in the open capital projects, and like Don said, we're almost 100% done with Smart Schools Bond Act, which was cabling. There's a couple little items with the turf and HVAC project at the high school. We talked about visitation. We talked about, we hit every building last year. It was a very active committee. I think you did a lot of good work. And from that, there were not a lot, but there were some things that we did, for instance, at the high school, creating a security vestibule and other things which we sort of made a determination are really more like capital project items. And then we discussed capital project items at the meeting. And we actually determined that we're going to have more discussion about that. But the bottom line was we've deferred a lot of maintenance. I've talked about this many times. We need very basic things in every single building, boilers, roof replacements, that kind of stuff. There's probably tens of millions of dollars in that very mundane, boring facility investment stuff that we're going to have to do. So it's a matter now about prioritizing what we want to do, planning financially. The financial plan is almost as important as the capital project plan. And the idea would be, and I've talked about this before, setting up a timeline so that we go out to the public, we get authorization to do some work, and ultimately when we start doing the work involves the architects putting together plans and specs. We have to go to SED and have that approved. I mean, it's a multi-year process, but when we actually go out and issue bonds, that is borrow money, and start to repay that, we time that so we're repaying and retiring existing bonds at about the same time. So we can do potentially tens of millions of dollars of work with a capital reserve contribution, retiring the debt and building aid with little or no impact on the tax levy. So that's the financial component that we're working on as well. So I think we're going to have another meeting next week, actually, where we're going to kind of finish out that. And I've talked to Matt Mildemow of Land, so they're going to get involved, and so we'll keep that ball rolling.
Okay,
One of the big initiatives is not to increase the tax cap
correct.
above what we are now.
Right.
Stacy, I just want to speak a minute about visitation as far as last week when we were at the middle school and the high school as part of the reopening, just to kind of see everything that was going on. And it was a very positive experience. The children were happy to be there, and everybody seemed, staff and teachers were going above and beyond to welcome our students back. The traffic patterns looked good. We peeked into some classrooms and some offices, so everything was good at 25%, and I'm sure equally as good at the 50%. We haven't had a chance to do that yet. And did you want me to speak about the Orange County School Board meeting?
Might as well do that now.
Just very briefly, I attended the virtual meeting last week, and it was a presentation by ADAC, and they talked about some of the services that they offer to the school districts, and I think that they used us as a reference a lot because we did pretty much pilot the Teen Intervene for Orange County. There was not a lot of awareness as to what they can offer a school district as far as presentations on vaping and youth bureau opportunities, so that was nice to hear that we had some positive feedback with the Teen Intervene program. And then the school districts talked about their experiences with reopening and what's been happening for them. And I shared a little bit what's happening with us, whereas we are the only school district in Orange County that is part of a yellow zone, and what that represents for us. And I don't know, are you going to talk about that at all?
Now I am. Sure. Do you want to wait till we go around? Yeah, I'll go.
That was a big part of the conversation that took place between us on that call that night. It took up, the majority of the meeting, just them hearing for the first time what it actually means for a school district to feel what that is, to be part of the yellow zone, and the expectations that are on us as a school district. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And I'll speak to policy that unfortunately we did delay our meeting that we had planned last week. I'm going to blame it on COVID because as we have literally daily changes, it was unfortunately one of the things that because we had no pressing policies that had to be put on the agenda for this week, we did opt to postpone that meeting, so we will look to reschedule that meeting and get it back on the calendar. But unfortunately, we had some other stuff that was more pressing issues that came out of the governor's office, so we decided to postpone that meeting. But we will get it back on and publicly post it. I believe we had 2 or 3 policies that we were going to work on for that.
We had 3.
Yeah, so 3 policies, so we'll make sure that we get that back on the calendar. And a report by Emily, Board Representative.
So before I give updates regarding the launch of my new SAT program, I just wanted to share some perspectives of online and in-person school for my fellow students. Regarding the closing of in-person school for the rest of the week at the high school, I can't say that students aren't highly disappointed and frustrated. However, for the time students and I'm sure teachers were able to be physically present in the building, it was a really nice reminder of normalcy for us and we all enjoyed it a lot. Whether it continues in the future or whether virtual will be the new normal, I just want to say thank you on behalf of all the students for at least trying to get us back in school. I was truly lucky to be in the A group that went in yesterday at 50%. I hope that others will eventually get to do the same. The only complaint of students during virtual schools that I've heard from multiple students was the issue regarding the status of cameras being on during Google Meets. The opinion that cameras should not ever be mandated or forced was strongly stated to me directly from some people. The issue for this lies in the fact that students live in different socioeconomic classes, and some may also have very chaotic households. And this is totally understandable. However, I feel like when there is some discrepancy and misunderstanding on the side of a student situation, students should also try to understand that it's very stressful for teachers to try to teach online and just see a bunch of closed cameras. And I think students need to realize that for classes that are like performing arts, band, orchestra, cameras, it's really crucial for the class to just run smoothly. But for the meantime, I've noticed that there's no official rule stating cameras have to be on, but it's highly suggested. I hope that we can keep it this way to respect those who truly don't feel comfortable with their cameras on. And to end my student report, I wanted to announce that my student-led SAT program, Essential Prep, has officially launched. Our website is currently active, and we just started virtual classes yesterday. On the initial launch day, we actually got so many students that I decided to enlist the help of 2 more seniors, Brian Whitfield and Olivia McQuaid, to help run and teach the program. We currently have over 60 students taking our class, and we are helping additional late students join. We have 2 beginner classes and 1 advanced class. Each of these classes will be run 2 times a week for an hour to an hour and a half. We are soon going to be putting up extra help links on our website on the weekends for those students who need additional support. Again, I'm really trying to push a lot of resources to those who really don't have access or knowledge about them. I'd like to thank Mrs. Rodriguez, Mr. Williams, and Mr. Cassidy for helping me get all the information put out there to all the students. That was a really crucial part of it. I'm very excited to keep going with the program. All the students so far have been very engaging and excited about learning, which is nice to see. One student actually told me that this was exactly what she wanted at Monroe-Woodbury, and that was really heartwarming to hear. So thank you guys.
That's great, Emily. Can I have 2 questions? One's for Bargoff, but one is for you. How are you advertising to the students and/or the parents about the class?
So I think there was a flash email sent out to all the parents of junior and seniors.
Okay.
Because I'm prepping for the December SATs, which some seniors might be taking. Additionally, I requested that a link on the website be posted directing them to our website.
Okay, good.
And there's also been a lot of passing on communication from students to other students, and so we have an open email that we are addressing all of these. We get tons of messages daily. So
Okay, great. All right, thank you so much. And my second question isn't to something that you said, but I know, I believe it was back in one of our early September meetings that Bargoff had mentioned addressing the Google backgrounds. Has that come out yet? Because I do know
Yes.
that would definitely go to what Emily is referring to for some of our students being able to have a, forgive me because I'm not tech savvy, like a backdrop behind them when
Yeah,
they're
I
in
thought
class?
we had already
So
made a decision that we weren't going to, if they wanted to shut the camera off, that it was okay. Did I understand you to say that
No, we
it's not
encourage
okay?
them to have the camera on.
But
because-
remember, we talked about what their environment was going to be like.
Right, but I
and that-
think that Bargoff.
So the Google,
Google released a couple of weeks before a feature inside the Google Meet. It's called Google Background Blur.
Okay.
So when you use that background blur feature, and we actually have a video, we'll make sure that we send it out to the students. We have a video on our YouTube channel. So when you turn that on, you can just see the face and a person. You cannot see what's inside behind the background. And that feature will help a lot. We in the beginning, we heard a lot from the students that not many students will be comfortable, but by using this feature, it should actually lessen their worries.
So again, is that being somehow advertised to parents and students that that's available?
We will make sure that we do.
Okay.
I thought it was automatically going to be on there, so that everyone is on the same, and if they chose to have it, that's one thing, but,
They have a choice of
discussed
turning
that
on and off.
Some people may live in certain areas where it's none of anybody's business what is going on in their home, or what is on the walls in their home, or anything, just complete privacy.
With this feature, you would not see what's behind me, so you will just see my
That's
face.
why I thought it was going to be on.
No, it's
But
not.
a Google-
It's
not-
per
not a
user.
Not us.
The user, right.
It has to be enabled by the
Right, it
user.
has to be enabled by the student.
So we should.
We
So
will
that's
make
why
sure we
they're turning it
advertise
off.
to the parents and students.
Yes.
Okay.
They may
Okay.
not have been aware that
Thank
we
you.
have this feature.
Yes,
And I will
let's make sure
say-
that that gets known, and then hopefully Emily can report back to your students that might have been saying that Mr. Bias will hopefully get something out to them that will give them a tutorial of how to do that.
Yep.
And
Okay,
if you haven't checked out the Essential Prep website, you should, because it's impressive.
Yeah.
okay.
It's cool.
Emily, it sounds amazing. Thank you for doing this initiative. I'm just wondering, I'm sure it's going to be very successful. Would you consider doing an ACT?
Yeah,
prep as well?
definitely. SAT has been known to be more of the widespread method of test taking, and that's personally what I took, so it was easy for me to kind of get all the materials out together, but I'm considering doing it past the December date for the SAT. When I'm prepping for like spring dates, then I'll start considering even like AP, like tutoring and stuff like that, so.
And the ACT?
And ACT,
yeah.
in addition to that.
Because Emily's the founder, the executive director, and a tutor. It's awesome.
Thank you so much, Emily. Moving on to personnel for Matt.
Thank you very much. Before I ask for approval of the items listed under personnel, I just want to point out one person who's going to be appointed tonight, and that's under our certified appointments, and that's Ms. Teresa Padilla, who is going to be our new secretary in the Curriculum and Instruction Office, working directly with Dr. Hassler.
God bless her.
I didn't want to say that, but
Just the patience of her sitting here for 2 hours.
I think we all feel the same, and she is still here, so congratulations.
She's still smiling.
Well, congratulations, as long as you approve the items listed under personnel. So if you wouldn't mind doing that,
Motion.
that would be great.
Second.
But Teresa, he's even louder in his office.
I can hear him in my office.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. Good luck, too. Yes. God bless. Not that you'll need it, really not. Business and financial, Patrick?
So Stacy, I would also respectfully request the approval of the items on the business financial section of the agenda, which include our standard monthly financial reports for July and August, acceptance of 7 donations, 2 donations from Orange and Rockland to Central Valley for a STEM classroom grant, and also a STEM classroom grant for, I think the other school
Smith Club.
was, forgive me.
Smith Club.
Smith Clove, thank you. We have 2 contracts for related services and transportation through Orange Ulster BOCES, declaration of obsolete items, wrestling mats, and a scorer's table. We have a capital project change order, approval of that. It's actually a credit for $1,418. And a resolution to accept the external audit report that was presented by Gary Theodore, and our internal audit reports also, which were reviewed by the audit committee. And if, forgive me, I'm going to go back to the donations. I like to read the donations, and I skipped over that. So it was Orange and Rockland, 2 donations, a donation, instrument donation, full-size Stradivarius violin from Adam Nussbaum. Another donation of an instrument, a pearl percussion kit from Kimberly Hashem, a Semler saxophone from Cindy Catherwood, and unused fabric for the middle school, high school fax program from Amanda Yankulis. forgive me if I mispronounce your name, $14.57 donation to Pine Tree from Global Impact. So 7 donations. I want to thank everyone for their generosity there. And that's it. That's everything.
Okay.
Motion.
Thank you, Patrick. Motion, second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I'm sorry, before I forget and move on, I just had a question from, about regarding the SATs. Are we still on schedule to host the next upcoming SATs and ACTs? Because now that Emily just brought that up, I know that was a question in the community also.
Well, Stacy, let's actually.
And PSAT, excuse me.
is this Saturday.
PSAT is this Saturday at the high school.
And I believe we have like 500 students signed up.
Correct. And I know I have a child in that, so I got a reminder that it was still ongoing
Me
today.
too, and the classroom assignment as well.
Yeah.
The PSAT is on,
Okay.
and I think we're going to evaluate future use as it comes up on a case-by-case basis. Is that?
No, that doesn't answer the question, though.
Yeah, because I think it's already been, somebody
Canceled.
publicized that College Board canceled our November 3rd.
So did we cancel the November 7th SAT?
Excuse me, November 7th.
So let's go back to the original question. This Saturday is a PSAT.
PSAT.
I think we're going with that. Am I
Okay.
correct?
That's on, yes.
That's
Okay.
on. The other ones, I'm not sure. We'll have to get back to that.
How many students will be in the room for the PSATs? Do you have any idea?
A couple of hundreds.
In a-
I don't know
Not in the-
exactly.
Not in the same room.
No,
I
not in the
I
same
believe that
No, I
they
wanna
plan
know
on
in
being
the-
socially distant.
Yeah,
They're
that's
gonna
what
have
my
socially
concern
distant.
I
is.
think
They capped it at a certain amount.
They did.
They'd be able to
Correct.
socially distance
Maintain
throughout the.
social-
Right.
Right, they
And
did
it's
the same
smaller than
thing.
usual.
I just wanted to clarify that for anyone listening, that the kids will be taking the exam, but they will be distanced.
Appropriate precautions will be
Right.
in
Yeah.
place, for sure.
But I think that's the concern too for the November 7th one, because I think if it's canceled, then that's something that I think parents are looking to find out from, because
Because then they have the
Emily can
opportunity to
attest to this,
sign
they
up
have to
for-
have an opportunity to try to go someplace else, is I believe the concern.
Okay.
So yeah, so hopefully we can try to get a decision on that.
Yep.
ASAP.
We can follow up
Okay.
on that.
Okay, you didn't ask about questions on financial.
I'm sorry, questions on financial? Lorraine?
All right, so under the contract,
Yes.
agreement with Lori for feeding evaluation services, is that a speech pathologist specializing in feeding?
I believe that is what it is.
That is, okay.
Yep.
Well, I have to say, this is very good that you're doing something like this. This is a long time coming. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Committees on
Time for you
special.
to leave, Lauren.
Oh,
I'm sorry?
Just in time for you to leave, too.
I know,
All
but
this
that's
time.
okay, it's all good.
It's okay.
It's
yeah,
that behind-the-scenes
things.
stuff that happens.
Committees on special education and preschool special education, may I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Reports by board and central office. Dawn?
Just thank you to Elsie for the reopening conversation, and obviously all the work that's gone into every decision that's been made with you and the cabinet and all the administrators and teachers and staff. And thank you for truly always having our students and our families' best interests at the, heart of every decision that's made. Thank you to Dr. Hassler for your presentation. I'm happy to have heard it twice. Congratulations to Teresa, and thank you for your patience. I know it was a very long meeting for you to sit here, but we appreciate your commitment, and good luck. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Don?
Same. That was easy.
Nice and simple. Suzanne?
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone who presented tonight, and good night. Everybody stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you. Emily, anything else?
Just want to say that I know you guys are like, it's really stressful, like me being here and hearing all this. Like, it's just like, wow, I didn't realize so many things were going on. So I just want to say thank you so much for trying to make it work.
Thank you. Donna?
I just wanted to say that thank you to Elsie for your unwavering strength, leadership, advocacy, and dedication to all the students and staff and this entire community, because it is, I see it on a daily basis, and it is unwavering and just all done with love. So thank you.
And it shows.
Yes.
Thank you.
And also,
Thank
happy birthday to Anthony on November 7th.
Yes.
He's like, wait.
Happy early birthday.
Thank you. Bargov?
So yesterday was the first day for 50% of our students come back. Unfortunately, it was just a one day, but that's fine. Our infrastructure stayed very, very strong. We are still at the 1/3 of capacity of what we plan. So we are very excited, and whenever we are ready to bring the students, we should be fine from the infrastructure side. We also worked during the summer. One of the things that we were looking at is how do we bring the instruction outside the building? And as of earlier this morning, we have at least one parking lot equipped with the external, what we call outdoor wireless access points that allows the connectivity outside the building. So when the weather is good, teacher can take the classroom outside, including their Chromebooks. So we are piloting this with one parking lot in every building, and the goal is to get the feedback and expand it to the more parking lots for all the buildings. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Eric?
So congratulations once again, and welcome Teresa to the Curriculum Instruction Office. When I made the move to the Curriculum Instruction Office, my kids asked me, what do you do there? And I said, well, the CNI office is in charge of all the things that kids learn, and that was very disappointing to them. Like, they thought it was very boring. So I hope it's I'm going to try to make it as glamorous as I possibly can, because in my kids' eyes, it's not as exciting as they think. So I'm going to try real hard. Congratulations and welcome.
Patrick?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank and acknowledge the business office staff and the treasurer, Tanya Mulrad, for the work they did with the audit committee. Everybody kind of took off here, but obviously we know it's a lot of work. It's a very important thing. We're audited by the external auditor, the internal auditor, occasionally by the state controller. So those are all internal controls. Those are all outside folks and entities observing and monitoring what we're doing. And we use that information. We submit that to both the State Education Department, the Office of State Controller. We submit data that's used for our state aid for this year. So all the information that we were audited in 1920, and we went through that process, we're submitting that through the state aid management system. That's how we get our state aid for the current year. And we're using that data to make projections for next year's state aid, the state aid runs we get. So it's super important. And everybody did a great job like they always do. So just thank you and acknowledgement to everyone that's a part of that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't really have much. I can go over the COVID presentation again if you want. If not, have a wonderful night.
Thank you to the presenters. Congratulations. And this wasn't a bad meeting. It was not even 2 hours, well, almost 2 hours. I just want to say that, it felt very strange to make an announcement that I'm resigning, so I'm trying to really process that. So until next meeting, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you then.
Thank you. Michael?
Thank you to admin and faculty for continuing to be flexible for all of your efforts as we move through the current environment. And good luck and Godspeed, Teresa.
Wow. Wow. He must know Eric well.
I mean, Matt, it's official, right? She's appointed now. They voted on it, right?
Voted on it.
Back out now.
You can check in, but you can check out.
It's like, oh my God.
Anthony?
I echo everybody's comments and congratulations to everyone here, and thanks to everybody's hard work during these historically difficult times. Have a good evening.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to take a couple of moments. I just want to say to the same as Donna, because, I'm sorry. I always do that. I forget that. I always think she goes last.
No, you're the president.
Sorry. All right,
You're the president. You go last.
I don't like going.
So very, very quickly, you mentioned the yellow zone. That's like a bad word in my house. But we were designated by the governor on Thursday or Wednesday. I had been repeatedly told that we would not have to test, but of course that changed when the governor said that we are part of the yellow zone. And so the last information I received today was that we would have to test 20% of our students and staff, that we would be using the rapid test. I will say that the rapid test has about a 60% accuracy. And so there will be a letter that goes out tomorrow deciding what we're going to do as a district. But I just want the community to know that the decisions we make are always going to be in the best interest of the students. We will not get involved in any of the other parts that go on, but we will make the best decisions for our students, and you will get a letter tomorrow. I didn't officially send it out because the letter that I had written this morning changed after I spoke to someone, so things are constantly fluid. But yes, they were designated as being part of the yellow zone, and as a result, they'll have to be tested if I want to continue to have the students in the building. There's a couple of more things. I want to thank Eric for his presentation. This Friday is Think Pink. I just want to remind people that 1 in 8 women are diagnosed with breast cancer. I'm a breast cancer survivor, so early detection is really important. So I just want to remind people of that. If you haven't had, I know this is kind of weird, but if you haven't had your mammography, go get one. The other thing is that the following week, on October 23rd, from October 30th, is Red Ribbon Week, and we are hosting it. So there's going to be many activities, virtual activities. Spirit Week is going to begin on October 23rd to the 30th. There'll be events. Look on our website. There's a lot going on. Again, I will tell you that we are all trying really hard to keep things as normal as possible, so these events are important. You'll hear more about it. We were acknowledged by NISFA as a school. We've been placed on the academic honor roll for earning the School of Distinction Award in the Scholar Athlete Team Award Program in 2019-2020. Next board meeting, I will talk about the students that Lorraine mentioned. I have to get that information. And congratulations to Teresa. You're a great addition, and I know that you will handle him. Oh, and here's the award.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, thank you. Here is the award that we got. So we got this, and we got this other piece as well, this certificate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, now my turn.
Remember, you're the
Okay.
president, you go
Yes, I know, I
last.
go last. I'm used to you, I'll follow you. And with that, I just want to reiterate also what Donna said, that while I don't sit in the office and see it every single day, I think many of us board members, and especially myself, can attest to not only what Mrs. Rodriguez has done, but every single one of the members of the cabinet. When I tell you that we are pushing and asking questions, and they are 100% always answering our emails, answering our phone calls several times a day, weekends, nights, that is what's happening. So as a parent with 3 students who sit in the district, I appreciate that, and I just want the community to know that behind the scenes, when things are literally changing every day, and we could leave this room and find out that there's new guidance, I just want to say that I appreciate all of the hard work that's going into it, and on Emily's behalf, I think that the students appreciate it as well. So I want to thank you for that. I want to thank Lorraine for getting up and speaking about her concern, and I think it is something that I'm hoping that as a district, we can make a more concerted effort for it. I don't know if maybe that's something that even Emily can kind of help out with, since she has her ear to the, to the students and seeing what's being presented academically. I know I did just hear of something over the weekend that I'm going to bring to, we're very fortunate because we have Prudence Thurston and we have Carol Spenley, who are our communication liaisons, along with our IT department, that we have great resources to get this information out. So I know I recently heard of something that I'm hoping to be able to share that is not an athletic component, but something I think is, great and should be recognized. I think it's one of the components that it's nice to recognize some of the great things that our students are doing. So I appreciate that comment. I want to thank our audit and all of Patrick and his financial team, because I know that that is a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes, and we only get a brief snippet of it, but I want to thank them for everything that they're doing behind the scenes. I also want to thank Dr. Hassler for giving his presentation not once, but twice upon request, so I appreciate that. I think it's important. And I also wanted to acknowledge that I believe we also posted on our Facebook page for the school districts, and I'm hoping that it'll go on the district homepage, about an award that MW Cares is receiving that we just got acknowledged by the state. So hopefully that's something that can get up there as well. So hopefully we can share that.
And I think it speaks to the SEL initiatives that the district, one of them being MW Cares, but
Yes.
also the Choose Love curriculum and a lot of the.
Choose Love.
I
Yes.
dug up the information if you
Okay,
want.
yes, please share, because I don't have the details.
So in the spring, we were nominated by the Orange County Youth Bureau to the New York State Office of Mental Health for an annual event that they host called What's Great in Our State, a celebration of children's mental health awareness. And Monroe-Woodbury is being recognized as an organization that does outstanding work to bring positive mental health and outcomes for children, youth, young adults, communities, and families. And so I'll have more information because the ceremony is later in the week. So once we participate, we'll be happy to share it with the board and be recognized at the next board.
So we were nominated.
Okay,
right?
great.
Is
Right,
there an
we-
actual winner?
I believe so.
Are we-
Yes.
Are we the winner?
I
We don't know yet.
I believe that we are.
Oh, we are the winner?
I think that it's just, I don't know that it's necessarily an award, it's more of like recognition.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean, a recognition.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll have
Take
additional
it.
information. This was, the snippet that I'm reading right now was what was communicated to me in the spring when they originally made the nomination, and I believe that there was notification, so more information will be forthcoming on that.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. And aside from Anthony's birthday, which happy birthday early, we also have 3 cabinet members, Mr. Vyas, Mr. Cahill, and Mr. Kravitz, wishing them a wonderful birthday and previous birthday 2 days ago.
They're all October birthdays?
They're all October. There are 3 October
Oh,
birthdays,
Elsie, you
yes.
gotta have your
Eric's
cabinet of,
Eric's November, so
what are they,
Eric is
Libra?
close to
Oh,
you.
Eric,
We're all
yeah.
October, November.
Is that all Libra? Are you-
So,
Right on the cusp. Depends on what the horoscope says.
team.
okay, thank you, and welcome to Teresa, and good luck. I'm sure it'll go smoothly.
Everybody's wishing her luck.
I know. Can I please get a motion to adjourn into executive
Motion.
session to discuss
Second.
potential discipline of a particular employee? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Adjourn.